this perfect route today. Good evening, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California, this is Bhakti Community. We welcome you all to the Bhakti Wisdom series. Our host tonight is Navina, a spiritual entrepreneur practicing Bhakti Yoga for 4 decades. I'm Pavani Bhakti, and Anushri is supporting me on social media today. Welcome to the show, Navina. Extremely delighted to have you today, and thank you so much for giving us your most valuable time.
Thank you, Pavani, for having me. And thank you all of you for joining in. I offer my respectful dandavats to Srila Prabhupada, my spiritual masters, and to all of you. So today's topic is the power of association. You may have heard a saying that birds of a feather flock together, that like and like associate. And we're gonna study what is association, what is beneficial association, and how we can avail ourselves of that association. So sometimes when this topic is brought up, people become a bit thoughtful or even morose because they think that, what are my choices? I have a job, I have so many obligations, and I'm constantly surrounded by people who have a different mindset, who have a different idea in life than myself. So what is my hope? What is my scope for practicing spiritual life, for practicing bhakti? I'm not sure if this thought has crossed your mind, but it certainly has crossed mine. And believe it or not, it has also crossed Arjuna's mind. And that's why he's pondering and he's meditating on the thought that maybe I should go to the forest, maybe I should give up my occupation and I should become a renunciate. So, because that's the idea that he got when Krishna was explaining to him the yoga system. So, what is association? Association is not a question so much of physical proximity. It's not because you are in the marketplace or you're on a bus or a boat or an airplane with someone that necessarily you have association. Association happens when we get emotionally involved with a person. That's when we take association. The Bhakti texts say that especially when we share food and accept food, that's when we take association. When we give gifts and we receive gifts, and when we share our secrets, we share our hearts, and we give counsel to others. So in these 6 different types of exchanges, we actually have association. But if you are in your job and you walk up to somebody of your colleagues and you hand them a paper, or you tell them, okay, this is the stock price, or this is what's going on the project, technically speaking, you're not taking association, because this is considered a transactional relationship. It's not a transformational relationship. It becomes a transformational relationship when our heart, our emotions become involved in it. I'd like you to think of 2 incidences of what were the most influential experiences in your life where you met somebody who had a very deep impression on you. You can just think for a moment. Okay, anybody would like to share, just in brief, one of your experiences with a very influential person in your life that had a great impact on you? I can't see all your faces, but if somebody likes to share, this is the time.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So yeah, I met a friend not very recently, but in past few years. And when I first met her, I could, I mean, just like a person, not a friend at that time, but I saw her how she is always eager to help others in any way she can, and she's just doing one after another. She can't sit, and she just keeps doing act of kindness, and that that attracted me a lot, and I wanted to associate with her, and now she's a very good friend of mine.
Have
So
you found, thank you, have you found that it has impacted your life to
yes,
associate with her?
yes,
Did you study and learn some of her tricks, her techniques?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Somebody else would like to share? Okay, there's always the downside. Have you ever caught yourself speaking something, and as you said it, you were pondering, is this really true? Or is it something that I just picked up on the news? Or I just picked it up on the bus? Or I just heard it from somebody? Has this ever happened to you? Or is it just me? That you kind of become a victim of circumstances, you get involved in your environment and it rubs off on you? It's quite a common scenario. So Bhakti practitioners are very conscientious how they move in the world to see how they can expose themselves to association that's actually beneficial for them, and how to avoid association that might not be so beneficial. Just like initially we're speaking about the birds, that birds of a feather, they flock together. Now we know there are swans, and they're very elegant, they're very graceful and beautiful, and they usually reside in clean lakes with lotus flowers, and they're eating very clean foods. So that's the nature of the swans. And then there's other species of birds, which are the crows. And they usually assemble in places where there's garbage. Have you ever seen an assembly of crows making a huge mess and tearing it apart and having a big party? So, and they all seem to nonchalantly go about their own business, and they're both birds, but they're of a different mindset. They have a different habit, they have a different food, they have a different lifestyle. So, in a similar way, as humans, we have these choices on every day, actually every moment. With what type of association do I surround myself? And that's not just in physical proximity, but that is also in the virtual reality. I'm not sure if that ever happened to you, that you were researching for a project and you were looking at something online, or you were looking at Wikipedia and you went down a rabbit hole, and after half hour or an hour or two, you forgot, where did I start? What was my point of origin? What was my initial search? And you try to retrack your steps to get back to the initial topic. Has this ever happened to you? Or is it just me? Okay, thanks for your honesty, your great audience participation. Now, in the yoga practice, it is very important that we can actually observe this, be the observer. So this is one of the lessons that I would like you to take away from today's little discussion. Be the observer. Observe yourself and see, how does my mind, how do my senses react to the stimuli, to the sensory impulses, to the input that I'm receiving? And how do I deal with it? Can I stay objective, or do I become involved and I become subjective. And the mind immediately starts justifying and arguing and saying, no, 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 it's okay. It's for research, right? Has your mind ever told you that? It's for research. I'm doing research here on a very important project. I'm studying this now very analytically. And then we should observe and take a step back and say, wasn't I supposed to do my homework and write this essay? And the topic is something completely different. And this is very, very remotely connected just through me using this computer screen. So in a similar way, the mind can go off on many, many tangents and take the scenic route. It's just like if you want to travel, you prefer to take the interstate, the big highways, which go direct line. Or when you fly, you want to take the direct flight and not have 3 stopovers in China. Because you want to reach your destination as quickly as possible with the least interference. In a similar way, when we practice meditation, we practice bhakti, we want to have the least interference. That's why we're choosing our association in a way that we can actually avail ourselves of the positive energy and the positive experiences and wisdom and realization, the insights of the people that we associate with. So in the Bhagavad Purana, one of the important yoga texts, the Srimad Bhagavatam, we have the story of Narad Muni. Have you heard of Narad Muni, the transcendental spaceman who travels with just one carry-on luggage? It's a sitar. And he plays his sitar, or veena, as it's called, and he travels on sound. He does not have to book airline tickets. So when he's recalling his previous life before he became a space traveler, before he became a saintly person, he's recalling this in the first volume, the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where he states that he was a young boy and the son of a simple maidservant. And in the time of Chaturmasya, which is the 4 months of the rainy season, which is right now, there were some sages, there were some great saints who took refuge in his village during these 4 months, because the sages, they travel by foot, and in the rainy season, everything gets very muddy. So usually they don't travel in these 4 months. So wherever they are, they just hunker down and they stay put during these 4 months. So these sages, they took shelter in his village, and him and his mother, they were tending to these sages by looking after their meals, cleaning their plates, washing their clothes. So they were doing simple services. Yet because his mood was a mood of humble service, and he had some inquiries, and he also partook of the remnants of the sages, in his next life, he became Narad Muni. He became a very well-known, renowned sage. So much so that most of the discussions that take place in this great scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana, are either of disciples of him, or they're centered around him, or he appears. He's one of the central figures in the most important of the Vedic literatures. So that shows that if we have the right attitude, we can actually extract a lot from our association. And if we're not really conscious and aware, then we may have that association, but we cannot actually take proper benefit from it. Have you ever heard the saying that you can be lonely in a crowd? Sometimes you're surrounded by a lot of people, but you actually feel alone or disconnected. You may even be in a very interesting or spiritual program, but the mind starts wandering off to other topics. Oh, did I lock my car? I still have to write this assignment. Oh, I haven't filed taxes yet. And I need to book an appointment with my dentist, but it's not such a great time to go to the dentist. So has this ever happened to you? Did your mind started wandering and started going through the to-do lists? Or is it a current state of affair and it's just normal default mode, and we have short, brief little glimpses of clarity where we can actually focus and connect? So in this Bhakti Yoga practice, we should make sure that our conscious moments become longer and longer and longer, and our glitches or our distractions become shorter and more infrequent. So the Bhagavad Gita, who is the main yoga text, is teaching us that there's two secrets. And if we avail ourselves of these two secrets, then we can actually take full benefit of association. And I'd like to tell you a little story. On Market and Powell, I met a person not too long ago, and he told me that he had met the author of the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada, in New York in the early 60s, mid 60s. So he was living in New York and he was visiting the center, and they brought him up to Srila Prabhupada's room. And he sat down, and he said it was all very quiet. And it was just Prabhupada sitting at a low desk doing some writing. And he said the Swami was silent and I was silent. And it was perfect because he understood me and I understood him. He knew that I knew that he knew. Now that's San Francisco. And he said it was perfect. We didn't speak anything. And after half hour, 40 minutes, he just left the room and somebody gave him some prasadam, some blessed food, and he went away. So 50 years later, he meets me in San Francisco, Market and Powell, and he gets one of Srila Prabhupada's books. Now, this shows to us that if we're not inquisitive, it may take us 50 years or maybe 50 lifetimes. We may have to come back to this situation over and over again. Did you ever go into a class or into a seminar and your mind told you these three magic words? I already know. Did these words ever appear on the screen of your mind? I already know. Did you notice how when these words appear on the screen of your mind, that it completely shuts you off? You cannot, no information actually enters you. As soon as you think, I already know. Because once my cup is full, nothing will go in because it's already full. If a person says, I'm all set, I'm all good, I don't need to hear this, or I already know this, then it disconnects us from the information and from the person who is speaking the information. So in the fourth chapter of the Gita, Krishna tells Arjuna, Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. Pariprashnena. Prashna, to inquire, to make an inquiry, a relevant inquiry, not just what's the price of gold, or how much is the rupee to the dollar, or are there flights to India right now? Not like trivial, mundane things, but something actually meaningful. If you make a meaningful inquiry, it really makes a strong connection. Do you remember an instance where you asked a meaningful question and you got a profound answer? Somebody likes to share some occasion where this happened? you mustered up your courage and you asked something sincere that was actually relevant to your heart, and you got some meaningful answer?
Um, yeah, I have an example of this. So
Yes.
I actually asked my guru some time ago. I asked him, I was curious as to why we pray when we know that our creator is always sitting inside us and he's observing everything. And so technically he should know what our desires are and what we need and like what we're thinking of that we need in our head. So then why do we actually pray for it when he knows everything and he knows what we want? So I asked this question. And he said that, praying is one, it's a form of humility because when you pray, you accept that you're not in control. And so, like, you accept that there's a higher power and that you need their support for the thing that you're praying for. And second, it's because that, like our creator loves us so much and he's swayed by our prayers. Like if when we personally reach out and ask for something, and when other devotees and people who also love him and he loves ask out and reach for something, then he's much more like inclined to do so just because he wants us to be happy. And so, yeah, this answer kind of blew my mind. And now I just pray on the regular because it's kind of calming and soothing to me as well.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. Beautiful. Yep. Yeah. So if we don't ask, then even if there's a wealth of wisdom, a wealth of information, it will be very hard for us to connect to that. So, and I think that's the first thing, that you learn, even as a child, to ask nicely, because if you just come in and scream, that only works up to a certain age. And then your mom or your dad start looking at you like, you're not my kid, because my kid talks, and you have to actually formulate a sentence and not just scream about stuff. So prayer is a sincere formulation of our heart's desire, and there is always a reciprocation. Thank you, Sveka. It also brings up the point of humility, which is actually the second component that makes the magic formula. That it's not just about asking, but our attitude in which we ask has to be proper. If we are, nonchalant or disconnected or not really interested, then the other party picks up on that mood and their answer will be dependent on what is our attitude, what is our mood in which we asked the question. So to have a mood of humility actually puts us in the proper mindset where we are able to receive. If I think of myself as something extraordinary, then I elevate myself and I go beyond the reach, which means nobody can reach me because I'm like way out there, floating off on my little balloon of greatness. But if I put myself in a lower position, then, as it says, water always finds its level, and affection or sneha is like oil. It also flows downwards. So if I put myself in the proper place, then that wisdom, that blessing will always find me. I will always be able to access it. Has it ever happened to you that you were stuck in a situation and you didn't know what to do, but somehow, through the goodness of your heart, you said a little prayer and had a little moment of introspection and humility because you realized, this is beyond me. I can't handle this. I can't make this happen. Whoever you are, if you exist, if you're out there, now is the time. Please make it happen. Or if you have a personal conception, you pray to your worship a form of divinity, and the magic happens and things come through. I don't know, but this is the way how you can actually witness miracles every single day. Every single day. Because materially speaking, there are so many things which are completely beyond our control and our influence. So
I have one
yes,
reflection, Prabhu. I wanted to just share because it's all about association.
yes,
Personally, what I normally do is I go with the flow, and however is the people around me, I just become one of them, and I just want to make everyone happy. That's how I have been all my life. Up until recently or lately, I realized that I really don't need to do that. Beyond a point, I can, yes, go with the flow, but when things are going all over the place, I need to just stop that with being a lot of respect with the for the person, because I do respect generally everyone. Like, I really see from where they are coming from, what are the circumstances, and but now I just decided that I will shut this conversation without upsetting the person, because it's against my thing. So when you were talking about association, and that the moment came in me, like, yeah, this association is great, but after this point, I will still continue the relationship, but I will stop uh, on this point. I wanted to get your advice or any other
no, that
things.
is perfectly fine. Now there are gentle, manly or ladylike ways of how to get oneself out of situations, and there is the more confrontational approach. So in traveling and observing persons with character and integrity and class, who have proper tact, I've seen that when they were in situations where people were trying to coerce them or manipulate them or get them to do things that weren't really adequate for the situation, the person would just say, I'll try. Like, sometimes people want to push you to make a commitment, and they say, what's it going to be? Are you with me or are you against me? Are you at this or are you at that? Is it yes or no? Then you can say, let me think about that, or I'll get back to you, or I have to do my research. So it's perfectly all right to defer. It's also okay to sometimes say that when you see that things are going in a direction that's not very congenial, that I've got some homework to do, I have a project that I need to finish, which is always true because we got unlimited homework and unlimited projects that we need to finish. And in this way, you can just excuse yourself without confronting the situation and making the other people feel bad that, oh, we're up to no good, or we're not good enough for her, or, that she doesn't like what we're doing. But after a while, people, they kind of get the drift, they get the idea. And in a similar way, we also see that when we are more in touch, more in tune with the bhakti practice, that we attract a certain type of mindset and a certain type of persona. And others, naturally, they will just not be so much drawn to this type of practice and engagement. So after a while, it becomes more natural. But initially, it's a bit of a struggle to navigate and to find one's way, okay? And due to circumstances, job, society, family, friends, one may be in certain situations, but it's not that we have to expose ourselves to that. Like, if you're in an environment where, like, there's a TV and it's blasting all day and all night, then you may not be able to pull the plug, but we can always remove ourselves from this situation and go someplace else. Otherwise, there's earplugs, there's face masks, like that. So it's important that we have some time where we can just be connected to our practice, especially in the early morning hours, that we're not swayed by the outside stimulations, to create that sacred space where we can just do our spiritual practice.
Thank you. Thank you.
So when our attitude is proper, then whatever we receive will be like a spark on dry leaves, and it will immediately ignite the flame of bhakti. But if we are absorbed in materialistic consciousness, then even though there might be blessings or wisdom coming our way, because I have a different agenda, I have a different mindset, I have a different idea, so I will not avail myself of these opportunities, and I will just veer in a different direction, in a different tangent. So in the bhakti practice, the topic of sangha or association is very important, and that's why there are a lot of encouragement to seek out spiritual association of like-minded individuals who are also dedicating themselves to a practice, to a discipline, where we can share our struggles and and compare best practices, so to speak, and also reveal our heart, reveal our mind. And that is best done with people who have some sort of sensibility to the topic. So how to do that? You start by seeing who responds, who is on your wavelength, so to speak, who you can vibe with, or you can share your heart with. And it's actually a very natural occurrence. So, but because we're living segregated lives, not just in these times of COVID, but in general, people have a harder time to connect because there is so much pressure and so many expectations, and people sometimes find themselves confined in their own little headspace and have a hard time breaking out. So don't despair. You are not alone. There is a lot of people who feel like that. So bhakti practice is a really wonderful process, and it helps us tear down these barriers and these inhibitions so we can connect with people who are like-minded, who also share similar experiences, and who can help us, be role models for us. So as a homework, till next time we meet, I would like you to actively seek out some good association that inspires you and propels you forward in your bhakti practice. We have time for reflections and questions.
Yes, we have. Please feel free to unmute yourself.
So Prabhu, one question: that is reading a book also considered association with the author?
Yes, absolutely. It's also considered association, and it's very valuable. It's wonderful. At the same time, it's also good to meet people and to get their input, because the book is very patient and it will do its part. Yet we should also have people around us who can tell us, hey, you, cut it out. You know, that's what friends are for, you know? Otherwise, how will we ever improve? Our mind is a genius in justifying everything. But when we have peer association, they will help us to be our better selves. Just like I was spending a week with my friend Steve from Boulder, Colorado. And hi, Steve. Happy to see you guys. And And I learned a lot about trees, and I learned a lot about many things. And so we spent time walking and talking together and working on trees. So it was very helpful. Now, I'm sure if I would just read a book about trees, I could get some of those fancy names, you know, some of these really nice Latin names. But but all these valuable insights that I got from Steve, I can only get that from a master. And who is a master? A person who has invested 10,000 hours. That means 7 years of full-time dedicated study in any discipline. So, and there's so many masters out there. But if you're new at something, you can even learn from the person who has been doing this for a week, or who just started the day before, because they have a head start and they can share something with you. And I hope Steve also learned something from me. at least I hope, you know. Hey, Steve, you want to say something? You can unmute yourself.
Hey, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hey.
Thank you very much for the hospitality. Yes, and thank you again for the Bhagavatam. I had so I actually had a question.
Yeah.
As I crack this open and I see the first illustration here.
Yes.
I was curious why there doesn't happen to be any female association. I mean, if that, yeah, just something that caught me as an objective observation about it.
Okay, thanks for asking. The Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaj Parikshit at the bank of the Ganges in the assembly of the great sages. And in those days, according to the culture, the Vedic culture, the sages and renunciates, they would live in seclusion. They would live away from society. So the female population was in the cities and in the villages, but this was taking place out in the wilderness. So only the sages were there, and Parikshit, so to speak. But the satsang or the sangha or the discussion of the Bhagavatam happens also in the cities, in the villages, and people will gather together in the town squares in the mornings and in the evenings. And that's men, women, and children, and everybody, and hold kirtan and have discussions on the same topics that were discussed on the bank of the Ganges. But because it was a discussion among sages and it was in the wilderness, so no ladies were present, as far as I know.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve, actually, for contributing. I just want to add that if you read further, I'm so happy that Bhagavatam is in your hands. It's so beautiful to see that. If you read further, you will see a lot of women in the stories on how they have practiced and things like that. So yeah, they are very much part of it.
Yeah, they're coming up. Yeah. They're coming up. And their voice is being heard, not just in the stories, but also in the prayers and in the teachings. So they're very much present, although they were not on that picture physically, but they were in the discussions. In fact, the most advanced devotees and the most revered and glorified personalities in the entire Bhagavatam are the gopis, are the associates of Krishna. And they're all women. So that's so much to that. I hope that clarifies your topic.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, you know, I wasn't aware of the cultural issues behind it, so that was, yeah. Thank you very much for the explanation.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you, Haribol.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing you again soon.
Likewise.
Is it snowing already? Is it snowing still in Boulder?
We got a good dusting. Yeah,
okay.
Well, 4,
Yep.
6 inches.
About 4 inches.
Yeah. So yeah, it was quite a bit. And here's my brother Ben, by the way.
Oh, hey, hi Ben.
Hello.
Good to
It's
see you.
Benjamin.
Great to meet you. I've heard a lot of great things about you.
All right. Well, don't believe all the good things that you hear. You know,
Yeah.
you have to find out for yourself. You have to make
Yes,
your own,
definitely.
you have
I
to
would
make
love
your
to.
own inquiry.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to meet you also.
Likewise.
Yeah, Steve told me a lot about you and your great family. So I will meet you hopefully sometime soon.
Yes. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, all the best. Do we
Thank you.
have time for 1 or 2 more questions or
Yes.
reflections?
Yeah, we have time. Please feel free to ask your questions.
Very well. Sorry. I like the point that you made before about humility and inquiry at the same time, because something I've noticed is that a lot of the time, in order for me to inquire, it involves me admitting a fault that I have, or admitting the fault of like ignorance, I guess, something that I don't know. And admitting that I don't know is such a huge part of learning. I think you also mentioned this before about how someone who thinks that, oh, I already know, like they're already shutting themselves off from so much that they can possibly understand.
Well, thank you for your honesty. You know why GPS was invented?
Because people didn't know where to go.
Well, that's one part of it, but the bigger part of it is because men didn't want to hear from their wives or girlfriends how they're going in the wrong direction. They couldn't admit it to themselves, so they'd rather just look on a screen and deal with that, because it's hard when a person corrects you and tells you, hey, this is not correct. You have to have a course correction here. You're going off on a wrong tangent. So it's important that we have checks and balances, and definitely reading the yoga texts is good to get clear directions, to know where is our north, where is my direction, where am I heading. But to have teachers, guides, mentors, and especially friends, peers who are walking the same path, who can give us their input, is very helpful. But it requires a little bit of humility, that we actually inquire with some sincerity. And we're not just doing it for form's sake or as a formality, but we actually want to find out. We're seriously interested. Then it has much more effect, because we'll not only listen, but we'll also apply it. Oftentimes otherwise it just doesn't enter. It just doesn't go in, because the noise in our head is so loud that we can't hear what's being said, because our own home movie is so strong. It's so dominant. So we have to actually find that switch and turn down that volume in our own head. And that means humility. And it comes from the Bhakti practice. When we read the Bhakti texts and we chant, then all this self-infatuation that we're a little too high on our own supply, on our own Kool-Aid, our own great glory, that we tone that down a few notches, then we actually have some room where we can consider other people's ideas and inputs, and we can actually grow, because we realize we're not yet there, that we are still in our initial stages, and there is so much room for growth. Just like I was mentioning in that week with Steve, I learned to see a lot of my limitations and there was a lot of room for growth, because it's a very humbling situation when you're faced with Mother Nature, with trees, or with your own physical limitations, your own shortcomings. Like sometimes you go into an exam and you forget the answer. Has this ever happened to you? Even though you studied and you learned it and you knew it, but that moment where you're questioned, you forgot it. So one simple little giveaway technique, to just admit and be humble and say that little prayer And believe it or not, most often it completely reconnects you to that answer. Has this ever happened to you? You
Yeah,
knew
yeah.
something, but you forgot it, and then you admitted it, and you said that little prayer, and that connection immediately happened. That reconnection happened. So this is the yoga process, that we reconnect with divinity, and we also reconnect with other living entities, and we don't shut ourselves off, but we actually take advantage, we take benefit from their wisdom. And I'll finish off with this point. Chanakya Pandit, who is a great moralist and author, he said that if you want to make every mistake possible, you don't live long enough to make every mistake possible. So better to listen and to read and to pay attention. And in this way, we can actually have not just transactional relationships where we're moving around a lot of products and goods and a lot of volume, but we can actually have transformational relationships where we feel that this person has really had impact on my life. This person really made me grow and made me a better person, made me fulfill my full potential, because that's the whole point of the Bhakti craft, the Bhakti process. So thank you very much. Please don't forget your homework. Try to seek out some good association, somebody who can actually, who sees the potential in you, can fan that spark and can make you grow and excel beyond what you are right now. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in 2 weeks on the same channel at the same time. Stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
I wish you a great, fantastic week. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, for giving us your
Thank you,
most valuable
Prabhu. Hare
time.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you all.
Hello.
Thank you, Steve and Ben. Have a great time out there.
Bye
Hare
bye.
Krishna,
Hare
Navina, you
Krishna.
too.
Nice seeing everyone.
Yeah. Good seeing you, Ben. All the best. See
Bye
you
bye.
soon.
Have a wonderful
Thank you.
night.
Bye.
2 weeks, man.